Racism itself, just in terms of history, it's a social construct. You know what? I have a question for you guys. What started this initiative?
You ever watch Frozen 2, John? Well, in 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 Frozen 2, there are these little rock people. They're supposed to be really well connected with nature, etc. And they have a saying. They say, like, they're like, sometimes you just got to do the next right thing. And so
Right.
this organization stems from conflict in the tuba community. Um, One such conflict with a composer and some other bigger names in the community. And in of all this conflict, I was approached by some other people who said maybe there should be organization or something, an organization, so that when everything calms down, the media calms down, people aren't angry, all of these things can still matter. This organization started from conflict, but of course, we always move to build. You always want to do the things that you do in such a way that other people would feel inclined to join in, and that you're embracing people, calling people in rather than just calling people out, you know?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Here on planet Earth, we often choose to identify and distinguish each other by color. What if that were not the case?
Having have grown up, I grew up in Harlem, in New York City. I grew up in the 60s, 70s. I think we all know like what was happening in America at that time. So, and there's a lot of social stigma connected with that experience in terms of just having lived in America. I started to look into history, to African American history. That's really one of the bigger things that changed everything. When you're looking at ancient history and understanding what the people accomplished historically, that is a very empowering fact. And so I really studied it. So I looked into it. That was one part of help, having to have, which had helped me to conquer the stigma connected with the institutionalized racism, stigmas. And also, just inside, there's a lot of, inside of us is a lot of strength, inner strength. So I've been, looking in those two areas, and that has helped me to stay strong and not to lose myself. If you look what happened in America in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, blacks in the music industry being ripped off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's one thing. That's part of it. First of all, I have to say, when we talk about whiteness, it's not about skin color, it's about attitude. And I often had run across a lot of opportunists in the jazz world. There's a negative thing which it has existed, it still exists. And I think it's related to attitude. But at the same time, I've had experiences where you have, like this word again, rainbow of people from all cultures. And it was some of the most beautiful playing, and our connection together was really beautiful. And I think to get to the point, what I want to say is that time is the key thing here. There's been an effect through colonialism, where negative effects still last. But I think over time, things can and are changing. Hopefully younger people are going to put an oldness to this, the scars connected with the effects left over from colonialism into music.
Yeah, if we all just kind of band together, do the next right thing, eventually, like you said, with time, things will change
Yeah,
for the better. Takes time, though. It takes
yeah,
time.
right. But it's also interesting what happens with that time to make the change happen. So it's like, that's why even this initiative will make an effect. It's made an effect on me. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you.
And we thank you so much for your support and for volunteering your time today, you know, and doing that next right thing.
Definitely, totally. It's really important. I think it's for African American youth. It's important just to have role models that you see who look like you. I started tuba in junior high school. I was 14, and this was an amazing year. I was walking in Central Park one day, 14 years old, happy new tuba player, and I hear the sound. I hear tubas in the background, and I follow the sound, but it's like it's soulful, and it's like that rhythm section. I'm like, it's like a movie. And then I come to this clearing. Oh, and there's in Central Park a half shell. It's called. It's an open air stage. I saw, in their prime, Howard Johnson's Gravity, with all the original guys. We're talking about 1976, 75, so around that time. After that, I went up to Howard Johnson after the concert, extremely excited. I pulled his shirt down. I said, "Hello, Mr. Johnson. Can I come to a rehearsal? I just wanted to be near." I became the roadie for the first like 3 rehearsals, but then eventually said, "Bring your tuba down." I began to play with him a few times. I did a couple of things with him, not much, but he was observing my development. In that same year, as a 14-year-old, in the junior high school band, I said to the guy next to me, I said, he played horn, Peter Sitkowitz. I said, "Hey man, I'm looking for a teacher, like a teacher." And he said, at first I said I couldn't afford like all that much for, I can't pay like a lot of money, but if he knows of a good teacher, said, "That's funny you mentioned that. My neighbor's a tuba player. I'll ask him. His name is Sam." That was Sam Palafian. The first year, 14, I met Sam, I met Howard, but through the meeting of Howard, I took a lesson also with Joe Daly. So this was before high school. And I had stayed with Sam Palafian through college. Yet it was through that meeting that I'm talking to you today now in Vienna, because it was Howard Johnson who made the recommendation to be an orchestra. I was joining my aunt in a church in Florida when I was just visiting, and they introduced me to the pastor's daughter because she played tuba. And when I heard her talk, her passion, when you hear that passion in a young person's voice, it really touched me. So I spent a little time with her. I asked if she had her own tuba, mouthpiece. She said she's looking to get her own mouthpiece. And I was able to give her a mouthpiece at the time, which was, she never forgot that. My aunt would tell me. And yeah, so it's just in my heart to do whatever I can to help. Because because I'm coming from the same as this girl. I grew up. We didn't obviously have money, but we had vision. Well, as an African American, music was part of the civil rights movement. That was something which really affected the consciousness of the people. The music that was played throughout the movement, throughout that period. Also, I just see music as an empowering element. That's what one sees that in the African American or in American experiences. I wonder how that is in other cultures or countries.
It may be, it's unfair to say, but a fair hypothesis might be that it is a human experience for music to be empowering.
Racism and activism in America, it's something that's given. It's the reality of what's going on there. Racism exists in Austria, exists everywhere. I've been asked that question in front of audiences, impromptu, like just out of the blue. And basically, I said, I think that the Austrians need to talk with themselves about it. Because to ask me makes no sense. Minorities or people who are of color in this country, it's a whole different demographic. You can't compare it to America. Turkish, quite a lot of Turkish people. There are people from Africa, different parts of Africa, Asia. People of color here are so few that activism, there's some groups here, but like, for example, when the George Floyd thing happened, there was a big march in Vienna and all the big cities. And, I honestly thought in Vienna, I'm sure that a certain percentage of the people are there really because they want to support it. And I'm sure a big percentage of people are there just to be seen. When people ask me about racism in Austria, I tell them often, more often have to confront the face of ignorance. When I first came here, the first year I was here, I was walking in a field with another musician, and there's a child and a mother were coming in our direction. And the child said to me, "Look, Mom, a nigger." This friend of mine, who's still my closest friend today, he said to me at that time, he had the privilege to be able to say to me at that time that, well, here in Austria, it's not meant bad. It's still, people say it's not right, but it's not meant bad. I told that same guy last year about, or so, within the last year, I said to him, you realize that was a privilege you had to be able to say that to me. And this is what I mean. It's like it's ignorance. It's just ignorance. It's just.
Yeah, I get you so much on this front, Jon, because being Asian and from Hawaii, the people asking me, do you live in grass shacks? Do you use shells as money? The people asking me to perform in the International Student Scholarship Showcase, and me having to let them know that I'm American, Hawaii is one of the states, and them still not computing it after me repeating myself thrice. That's ignorance. That it's not overt hatred. And I think as allies and as a minority, and I'm so glad you said this, and part of what I try to, the mission of Teshji, as allies, we have to be able to be discerning of when something is ignorance and when something is hate, when we can call someone in and when we do have to call someone out.
Well said. And yeah, another level of that is, it just came to my mind, of situations where a person might talk or refer to you with someone else, but in the third person. Like, you're standing right there. They could ask you, hello, sir, who are you, or whatever. They'll ask a friend, so where's he from? And you're standing right there, and so what does he do? I'm just listening to this.
I hate when the car mechanic does that to my wife. I will say, it's her car. It's her car.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me? Like, that happens across many. I just can't. Yeah. Does he speak English? I'm right here.
This is all stigma. People program their lens that they see things. It's already set up with the information that's in their consciousness and everything. And so it's like, I really am an advocate of that idea of being free from the known, but not separate.
Look, it's Rainbow Tuba.
Jon, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful.
Sure thing. Happily.